who's got very good habits. Praise the Lord.
Thank you.
Anyway, it's a good thing to have at this time of year to talk about habits and how we set New Year's resolutions, etc. So that's why we asked Craig to do this presentation. And yeah, I'm going to hand over to you, Craig.
All right, cool. Let's begin. Good evening, everyone. Let's open with a word of prayer, and then I'll delve straight into this presentation on forming new habits. Let's pray. Dear Lord, I thank you for the privilege to be here with the NECyouth talking about forming new habits. I pray, Lord, that the presentation will help those who are watching to be able to form new habits and help us, Lord, daily, because whilst we aim to and desire to form good new habits, there's also the struggle of the bad habits that we've got to. So I pray that you help us in this, guide my presentation, help me to speak clearly. Pray that everybody who will be watching will be blessed. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, this isn't, I think this may be going on, I can see the question that's come in. Will it be going on live or social media? I think they may upload it to YouTube, Denise, so you may be able to watch that or share it with those that you know as well. Whilst you do have questions, please do share this into, how can I put it? Share any questions that you've got, do share them in the chat section, and I'll do my best to answer those. I won't see the questions until after I've finished doing the presentation. So I'll just be going on with the presentation now. As you do have any questions that come in while I'm doing the presentation, just type them in the chat section and I'll take those. But without further ado, today we're talking about forming new habits. We're at this time of the year where everybody wants to start planning New Year's resolutions. The problem is that we always start planning a New Year's resolution and then we end up doing our old habits again. So what we want to do is we really want to see how can we form new habits that will help us through the year. The upcoming year 2021, I think it's going to be a time where we need to form as many new and good habits that will help us through, and really habits that will draw us closer to God as we continue on in this time that we're living in right now. Okay, so I'm just going to go straight into the presentation. I'm going to share my screen. If you can let me know audibly that you can see the screen, that will be fantastic. Let's just see videos. Hold on a moment, I've just got some settings that I need to set. Zoom.
I don't know if it's just and he's back.
Yeah, my apologies for that. There's something come up on my computer that wasn't letting Zoom.
No worries, technical difficulties can
Record
be
anything from my screen.
Mhm.
So Hopefully it should work now. Okay, can you see that screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, so forming new habits. In the presentation, what we'll be doing, we'll be going through a number of stages, some points that we want to cover. And then what I'll be doing is sharing some books that I think may help you in further study on the topic of habits themselves. So the points that we're going to cover tonight are, what are habits? We'll also be looking at how are habits formed. We'll be reading Habits in the Bible. We'll be looking at Ellen G. White on the topic of habits. And then we'll be also looking at habits that last, how we form good habits and how we break the bad ones. Now, I'm sure that we want to get to that place where we can break those bad habits that we've got and really work on the, how can I put it, the new ones that we're aiming to form and to grow with, and to have us develop those habits as we continue growing in this walk that we want to call Christianity. So what I'm going to do is just go through some points that I found in some books that I found recently. Firstly, in the dictionary, we want to look at, well, what are habits? Now, the dictionary words habits this way. It says it's a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. Okay. Now, there are bad habits such as the addictive practices of taking drugs, or a cocaine habit, for example. Psychology also classes a habit as an automatic reaction to a specific situation. So this morning when you woke up, there was something that you did, something that, whether it's brushing your teeth or getting up and reading the Bible, for whatever it may have been, there's something that was just an automatic reaction because you've got into the habit of doing something. Now, in the book by James Clear, which is called Atomic Habits, Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results, Atomic Habits. It's a book that he claims to be able to show easy and proven ways to build good habits and break bad ones. Now, in his book, he says habits are the small decisions you make and actions you perform every day. According to researchers at Duke University, habits account for about 40% of our behaviors on any given day. So today, most of your behaviors were 40% habits. And I find it to be quite interesting, because that means that most of the things that you do throughout the day are simply, it's habitual. It's things that you're used to doing. Now, some of those things that you did may have been good, some of them may have been bad, but they're habits. They form who you are. He says, your life today is essentially the sum of your habits. How in shape or out of shape are you? Then he gives the answer. That's a result of your habits. How happy or unhappy are you? A result of your habits. How successful or unsuccessful are you? That's a result of your habits. He goes on, what you repeatedly do, open brackets, i.e., what you spend time thinking about and doing each day, ultimately forms the person you are, the things you believe, and the personality that you portray. When you learn to transform your habits, you can transform your life. Now, I think it's a true statement that he's saying, that if you can learn to transform your habits, you can transform your life. But being a Christian, there are other areas that we realize that within the life that we live, we need the power of Jesus Christ to actually help us. There's only so much that you can do as an individual. But with Christ, as it says in Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Some of our habits have become these chains which literally bind us and hold us. And we're seeking for ways to be broken free, to be set free from these habits. But God is really the one who can empower you, strengthen you, and be the one who breaks those weaknesses that you have, as it leads towards the place called salvation. But as we are talking about habits daily, there are things that we can do in changing habits that can help us be all around better people. Now, one question that we need to ask is, well, how are habits formed? Now, the brain that you have, each of us, the brains that we have, it's a powerful piece of machinery that God has designed, created, and placed within our heads. Just some facts on the brain. It says that your brain is about 1.4 kilograms. It's about the size of 2 fists put together. The white matter that's in your brain that acts like trunk cabling, if it was unraveled, it could circle the earth 2 times. Now, when I read this, I was amazed. I was like, this is amazing. This is all inside our head. If there's one person that you ever wanted to pack your suitcase, it's God. He'd pack it so everything that you've got could get in there. It says that the brain is made up of 100 billion cells, which are also called neurons. Each neuron can make 1,000 to several 100,000 synaptic connections. And it says the more signals that are sent between the neurons, between 2 neurons, the stronger the connections grow. So the neurons, on the next point, it says, with each new experience and each remembered event or fact, the brain slightly rewires its physical structure. So no matter how young or how old you are, the brain can always be, it's always able to grow, to develop. And these neurons, each time that there's an experience, there's a memory that's formed, these neurons form these synaptic pathways. And the more you do this thing is the stronger that pathway grows, the brighter it fires and lights up when there's a trigger to whatever it is that was being done. So for example, the habit of brushing your teeth is something, it's a strong habit. It's there in the mind. Well, I hope it's a strong habit. And it's the more that you've done it, is the stronger it's become. There's more that we have to read. How are habits formed? From the website psychologytoday.com, they say habit formation is the process by which behaviors become automatic. Habits can form without a person intending to acquire them, but they can also be deliberately cultivated or eliminated to better suit one's personal goals. Now, when you're creating a habit that's to suit your personal goals, we could call those habits based around the area of identity. And these are things that you'd adjust and you do on a day-to-day basis because your aims in life, as Ellen White says in the book Education, success in any line demands a definite aim. And as your aims in life are pointed out, as you list those down, your goals, the successes that you have, will be determined by the habits that you form on a day-to-day basis. And those habits that you'll form should hopefully get you to the aims and the goals that you have in life. So these processes by which behaviors become automatic, I want you to think, I drive a car. When I get in the car, there's something that happens in the brain where my mind says, right, you're in the car. The moment I picked up the car keys, my brain saying, we're going to drive. I get in the car and I begin the routine of driving to get to the shop or the destination I'm heading to. That destination is my goal. And once I'm there, I finish driving. But whilst I'm driving, I'm automatically doing the driving, the changing of the gears, the switching on of the lights, the turning, the putting the indicator signals on to go left or right, whatever it may be. These are automatic reactions to something that I'm doing. And we know it's automatic because I'm sure anybody who's watching that drives, you won't be able to remember the amount of times that you press the brake, that you press the accelerator, or that you press the indicator. So people develop countless habits as they navigate through the world that we're living in today, whether we are aware of it or whether we're not. We could call them knee-jerk reactions or behaviors that can help people get our needs on a day-to-day basis met efficiently. So the fact that habits become deeply ingrained in our brains means that even if a particular habit creates more problems than it solves, it can be difficult to break. So the more you do something, the stronger it grows in the brain. Is the harder it can actually be to change those things. But what we do, habits are formed by what we do on a day-to-day basis. A lady by the name of Jeanette Ray Dupree says brain researchers have discovered that when we consciously develop new habits, we create parallel synaptic pathways and even, listen to this, even entirely new brain cells that can jump our trains of thought onto new innovative tracks. Okay. And some of you may think, well, I've got bad habits, I just need to get rid of them. Well, or because the things I'm doing, things that I've been doing, I'm unable to change because I'm just used to being this way. Well, she says, rather than dismissing ourselves as unchangeable creatures of habit, we can instead direct our own change by consciously developing new habits. In fact, the more new things we try, the more we step outside our comfort zone, the more inherently creative we become, both in the workplace and in our personal lives. What's interesting is that this year, because of COVID, we've all been placed into a situation, we've been placed into scenarios, moments, ways of navigating through this year that's been totally new to us. And we've had to pick up new habits. We've got used to doing things in a different way, especially with church being off. We're not being able to be in the churches. We've had to do church online. We've adapted to new ways of doing things. So we are able to change. And God knows that, God sees that. And so he says, you know, that he'll help us with these changes as well. He'll give you a new heart to make it possible. Jeanette Ray Dupree carries on though. She says, don't bother trying to kill off old habits. Once those ruts of procedure are worn into the hippocampus of your brain, they are there to stay. She says, instead, the new habits we deliberately ingrain into ourselves create parallel pathways that can bypass those old roads. So what she's saying here is that your old habits, those bad ones that you really don't like, they are there in the brain to stay. And in fact, there's quotes that I'll read with you later that show that spiritually this is recognized as well. But what is possible is for you to create new habits. And the more that you replace those bad habits with new ones, is the more that you create these stronger synaptic pathways that bypass the old pathways that you were doing, the old things that you were doing. A man recognized this called Nathaniel Emmons, and he said, let's just see, someone's trying to come in the room. Just give me a moment. Yeah, Nathaniel Emmons says, habit is either the best of servants or the worst of masters. Okay, so, and this is true. Your habits can either be the best of servants. You can create habits that will help you in daily life, or you can allow your habits to control you. Now, I'm sure that everybody who's watching this wants to create good habits that will enable you to be the master of your habits, so your habit becomes your servant. But you don't want to be the servant of your habits. That's where we end up into a mess and struggles of daily life. Now, our habits, we have what's called a habit loop. And according to Charles Duhigg in his book, The Power of Habit, he says that these three elements help in forming habits. So you've got your cue, you've got your routines, and you've got your rewards. Now, as you can see on the screen, a cue is a trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode and which habit to use. So I'll give an example of this in a moment. Once that trigger has gone off, you go into what's called a routine. You start acting out physically, mentally, or emotionally the routine that will get you to the reward that was triggered, for the hope that was triggered. Okay, the reward helps your brain figure out if this particular loop is worth remembering for the future. So imagine if this wasn't the case, every time I needed to drive, imagine if I forgot how to drive after each moment that I've completed the procedure of driving. The world would be in chaos. So what happens is that God's designed the brain so that each time that I've completed that habit, each time that there's been a trigger, I followed through with the routine and I've gained the reward. Each time that that's happened, this memory is strengthened in the brain. I think it's amazing. The Bible says that we were fearfully and wonderfully made, and it's so true. So each time the cue goes off, there's a trigger, there's something telling me I need to do this, I need to do this. The brain starts a process. So it says, right, the cue is there. Now there has to be the routine. So your brain starts telling you, do what you normally do to fulfill this habit that you have. In the aim of getting the reward. So all the brain wants to do is get to the reward. Once it has the reward, then the brain goes into this mode to say, it's worth remembering for the future. We've completed the process. That's a habit. Those three processes: cue, routine, and rewards. Now, an example of this would be brushing your teeth in the morning. Okay, you wake up, you might run your tongue across your teeth, and then you realize, you know what, I need to go and brush my teeth. Okay, that's the cue, that's the trigger. All right. So the cue is the film or that feeling that you get on the teeth. The reward, the routine is that you're going to brush your teeth. Okay, so you wake up, you switch the water on, get the water on the toothbrush, you put the toothpaste on, you start brushing your teeth, all to get the reward of clean teeth and fresh breath. That's all it is. Okay, and then once you finish, gladly, the brain says, this is something that's to be remembered for tomorrow. Okay, so that's an example of a habit loop. Now, I want you to think while we're going through this presentation, what other habits do you have, whether good or bad? You can write those down. And what are the cues, what are the triggers that start that habit off? What's the routine that you go through to get the reward for that habit? Unfortunately, there's some really bad habits that many do struggle with, things that they have cultivated because of tendencies that are within. And by cultivating those tendencies, what happens is we get to this place where we do something over and over so much that it becomes a struggle to stop. And then we feel bad when it's a bad habit that we have, and we feel guilty for what we're doing. But God has made a way so that even though you do have those bad struggles, those bad habits, God will help you create new ones. So he doesn't essentially want you to just get rid of the old ones. He wants those to stop, but he wants you to replace those bad habits with better ones. And we'll talk about that a bit later as well. Now, habits may be formed unintentionally as well as intentionally. Now, I want to just invite you to think of this person. Some of you may know who this person is, some of you may not. This is Edward Bernays. And in his book, Propaganda, pages 9 and 10, he says the conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Now, I'm reading this to you to let you know that there are some habits that you have that were influenced externally and you weren't even aware of it. And I'll share some of those with you in a moment. He goes on to say, those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. He says, we are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. Now, a question I've got for you as well. Who is Edward Bernays? All right. What did Edward Bernays do, or how was he involved with regards to habits that you may be doing or that you see others doing today? Now, up until the 1920s, the concept of creating consumer appeal, it was non-existent. The man who introduced this psychoanalytical approach to the field was actually the father of PR. This is Edward Bernays, the father of PR. This is how he's titled. Okay, it's no coincidence, however, listen to this. He also happened to be related to the radical psychologist Sigmund Freud. So those of you who have studied Sigmund Freud, Edward Bernays, if I'm correct, was his grandchild, or further on, or it was his nephew, if I'm correct, nephew. So it says, wielding the pioneering psychological insights of Sigmund Freud, Bernays sets out to experiment as to how he could shape public opinion and decision-making through PR campaigns. Over the course of his illustrious career, he was commissioned by a vast range of American corporations and also worked in the public sector. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to tell you maybe two, if I've got time, maybe three of the things that Edward Bernays has actually influenced. Okay, just give me a moment. Let's give it attention. So listen to this, Edward Bernays. Now, smoking. In 1929, public relations was a new experimental field that Bernays had effectively invented. His hugely successful campaign to encourage women to smoke Lucky Strike cigarettes that year became the stuff of legend. This is what they say in one of the websites that I'll share with you if you want to do more research on this. Now, during this period, it was still taboo for women to smoke in public. Furthermore, market research had suggested that Lucky Strike's green packaging had put women off from buying them as it wasn't a desirable color. So Bernays applied this unique approach to overcome these hurdles. The green packaging was deemed too expensive to replace. The answer that he gave to instead make the brand specific shade of green the premier color of the fashion season. So he's linking the colors with the fashion, okay? Bernays then went on to convince fashion designers to incorporate the color into their new season designs and held a green gala at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel for some of society's most prominent trendsetters. Now, this is just colors. You might think, oh, but it's just colors. Listen, there was a bigger plot behind the scenes that was taking place, okay? So he's telling the fashion designers, change the shade of green so it links in with this pack of cigarettes. Now look at this. The audacious campaign went further. To break the taboo of smoking in public, Bernays linked Lucky Strike cigarettes to the women's liberation movement and staged a demonstration at the 1929 Easter parade, having fashionable young women photographed flaunting there. And he had them put the cigarettes in this, you know, that long thing that they used to put the cigarettes in. They'd hold it in their hands, and he got the photographers to go just slightly underneath them so he could get a picture with their hands up in the air, holding this cigarette, and it was called Torches of Freedom. Now, consider this. The brand later became a symbol of gender equality in the US during those years. Now, these Torches of Freedom, what woman do you have in America which stands with a torch in her hand that you have to look at from beneath? The Statue of Liberty. So what Edward Bernays was doing was linking everything with freedom, women's liberation, colors, and everything that society was aware of, believed in, but they didn't realize that those very things were used to break taboos and cause women to really desire to smoke these torches of freedom, cigarettes. So this bad habit that people are trying to break all over the place today, he was very influential in making it a thing that women were very involved in 1929. Also, let's have a look, the guilt barrier. I want to tell you about this. Now, Bernays applied more psychoanalytical methodology to improving the sales of Betty Crocker instant cake mixes. Now, after a focus group conducted on the target market, American housewives, he concluded that they felt an unconscious guilt for using a product that required so little effort to make. So the whole aim of this was to improve the sales of the Betty Crocker instant cake mix. They couldn't figure out why nobody was buying them. And what he told them was this: look, people feel guilty because they're hardly doing anything while they're making it. I guess the times were very different then than they are now. Everybody's got microwaves, and we live in this McDonald's society where we want fast food. But there, people felt guilty. He found that the answer was people felt guilty because they weren't doing too much to make the cake. So his answer was, give them a greater sense of participation by requiring them, listen to this, to simply add an egg to the mixture. Now, the sales soared as the symbolic egg tickled the depths of subconsciousness and removed the barrier of guilt. So this exploded the sales of the Betty Crocker instant cake mix just by telling them, just add your own egg into the mix and you get this beautiful fluffy cake. His help with soap, Procter & Gamble's Ivory soap, he ran campaigns to make it seem as if the soap would float. The hearty breakfast, the American breakfast went from being, I think it was toast with orange and coffee to adding, what was it called? He wanted a more protein-rich breakfast, so he had them add bacon and eggs to the breakfast. So all of these things were influenced by people who are behind the scenes that you don't really know. Now the question, there's much more that he's done, and I'm sure that you'd be interested to go and study more about how he has impacted our societies. But you need to question, well, how have you been influenced? How have we been influenced today? The phones that we use, the cars that we drive, the clothes that we wear, the things that we do. How have you been influenced? And that's something that we just need to question. I'd like to tell you of a lady called Lisa, who is featured in Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit. And her story is shared close towards the beginning of the book to encourage people to know that habits, bad habits, can be broken when you set good goals. How we form habits, you can form habits by having your goals, by knowing where you want to get to, but also be aware that habits that you have can be formed externally and sometimes by powers that you aren't even aware of. You could ask, why do you like the Apple phone, or why do you prefer Android? I've seen arguments start when one person takes the stance for one over the other, and they'll argue their case as to why Apple's the right phone or why Android's the right phone, yet they've never worked for the company. We are sometimes these companies' best advertisements. God wants you to be his best advertisement. He wants you to stand up for him, to share his truth around the world so people can accept it. So at the end of this presentation, I'd really hope that everybody who's listening makes it a habit to read, to study, and to pray, and to share the truth of God with those around them. But do consider, how have you been influenced? And if you do have bad habits, how can we break them? So in this story of a lady called Lisa Allen, it says she was in a very bad place, broken relationship. Her studies weren't going well. She wasn't in a good job. And then she decided to make significant changes in her life. And she set a goal to, I think it was to go across a desert. Now, she replaced, to do this, she needed to set different goals in her life. So what she did, she replaced smoking with jogging, which led to a number of other significant changes in her life. This changed how she ate, how she drank, how she worked, how she slept, how she saved money, scheduled her work days, and planned for the future. So just by setting a goal caused a huge amount of changes just in her lifestyle. Eventually, because she stuck to these goals, she set this goal, she aimed the aim, and she was successful in reaching it. She was eventually recruited into the scientists' study that were looking into habits and the synaptic pathways and neurons of the brain. And they found one set of neurological patterns or old habits had been overridden by new patterns. So what Jeanette Ray Dupre had said earlier, in that don't just try to get rid of those old habits, instead just create new ones, new pathways, and those old pathways will, they'll just be left alone. This is what happened in Lisa's mind. So her old habits had been overridden by new patterns, and they could see the neural activity of her old behaviors, but those impulses were crowded by new urges. So the old behaviors were still there. It's just that they were crowded by new urges now. They found in the study, as I was reading it, that when those urges for the smoking were there, that they'd see the neurons still firing quite dimly, but they were firing. And that the new habits, those new pathways that she had formed, as it says, were crowding out the old habits of the smoking and the bad habits that she had. So you can form new habits. Satan will still try to tempt you, but you can form new habits. Lisa, her habits being changed is proof. It's one person's testimony that this is possible. Her decisions, her new decisions in life, were becoming automatic behaviors. Or in other words, her new decisions started to be automatic and ultimately became habits. Now, when we look in the Bible, is there anything mentioned of habits there? Well, in the Bible, in the book of Psalm 119, verse 44, David says, look, so I will keep your law continually forever and ever. So there's a habit here of taking hold of God's commandments. I want to encourage you that those of you that are watching, there are two places where you can see the power of God revealed. It's in God's commandments. You can see him fulfill those in your life, and also his promises. You can see those promises realized in your life. So I just want to encourage those of you that are watching, look for the promises and the commands and try to build habits around those, and you'll see that God will do great things for you. Luke chapter 5, verse 16, Jesus himself would often slip away to the wilderness and pray. Prayer was a habit, a daily habit of Jesus himself. Now, if he needed to do it, how much more do we need to? Psalm 5, verse 3 says, in the morning, O Lord, you will hear my voice. In the morning, I will order my prayer to you and eagerly watch. So we need to make a habit of prayer, and we also need to make a habit of watching to see the Lord answer those prayers. See the Lord answer those prayers. Matthew 14, verse 23, after he had sent the crowds away, he went upon the mountain by himself to pray. And when it was evening, he was there all alone. Jesus spent time in prayer, even by himself. We definitely know he was studying because the words he spoke were often from the Bible itself. So he spent time praying, he spent time studying, and it was in that place of prayer where his strength was given daily to overcome and leave us an example to show us how we need to overcome daily as well. Now, for those of you watching, you may be thinking, well, how can I pray? And what can I do to pray? I want to give you an acronym, and it's habit. Okay, so the acronym is habit. When I've been using this for a while, it's helped me in my prayer life. In going to pray to God, the H stands for here I am. So when I go to God in the morning or in the evening or whatever time of the day, I'll go to him and I say, look, Lord, I'm here now because of this reason. So in the morning, Lord, I'm here. I've just woke up. I'm here to talk to you. Okay. So H is here I am. A is after I pray. And what I'm doing after I pray is I start telling God about the plans I've got for the day after I finish speaking to him. So I let him know I've got this book that I want to read, or there's this plan that I have. I'm going to be doing this with the family. Whatever it may be, I let him know what my plans for the day are. Now you could say, but God already knows what the plan is for the day. Well, he still wants you to talk to him about it so you can acknowledge how he's going to answer your prayers. So I talk to him about what I'm doing after I pray. So H, here I am. A, after I pray. B, before I go. And in that time, I'm talking to God about what he shared with me. Before I finish praying, Lord, I want to talk to you about the great things that you've been doing in my life. I want to repeat to him some of the answers to prayers that he's given me, what I've been reading in his word, things I may be a bit perplexed about that I need help with, things that are on my heart. I talk to him about those in that section there. So we've got H, after I pray. No, H, here I am. A, after I pray. B, before I go. And then we move on to I. So we've got H, A, B. I is intercession. This is where I simply pray for people, my loved ones, friends, even enemies that I may not know. We have to pray for them. Pray for all of those. Pray for the situations in your life. Pray that you can see God's providence throughout the day. So I'm interceding in that moment. I'm praying with him, praying for people. And in that moment, I'm also looking and praying to him about requests that have been constant on my mind. I'll have some silent moments in that time where I'll just be thinking about people to pray for. And I've often found that the Holy Spirit will bring to your mind names, people, situations for you to talk to him about. And I'll pray to them. I'll pray to God about them in those moments. So I, intercession, and then we've got T, simply giving thanks. T is thanks. So I'm coming to God and I'm saying, thank you for what you've shown me. Thank you for what you've taught me. Thank you for what I'm learning. Thank you for the prayers that you are going to answer. We have to be hopeful with our prayers. And I found that in having this moment of making prayer a habit, it helps every day. It helps me have something new to talk to God about every day as well. So I just want to help you. I hope that that's something that will help you. Just as a reminder, H is here I am. A is after I pray. B, before I go. I, intercession. T, thanks. Make prayer a habit. Now, Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25, just going back on the screen, if you watch with me, it says, not forsaking our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. So here, Paul saying in Hebrews that some have made it a habit to not assemble with each other. That's going to be a big temptation when we come out of this pandemic. God wants us to come back together into fellowship, not just online, face-to-face, close fellowship together. The desire for the church is for us to come. Church it means a body of believers. Now, as some may have made it a habit not to do this, what's happening? And we've had a whole year of being in this habit of not assembling face-to-face. But what we see here is that God's desire is that we shouldn't forsake the assembling together. So when the opportunity does arise, let's get back together. If you're in a country watching this and you're able to come together right now, then do it. Take the most of fellowship that we can. Here in this text, Paul is trying to outline, while there's a habit of not assembling, replace that habit with a better one of assembling and coming together. There are other habits in the Bible that God has spoken about: the Sabbath of the Ten Commandments, prayer, sharing the gospel, studying the Bible, study to show yourself approved, a workman of God. And these are all habits of grace that God wants you to have. When we read in the Old Testament, we read of habits that were there, the habit of them coming to the sanctuary, bringing the lamb, the habits of the yearly services that they kept, which were all speaking of Jesus who was to come. These were all habits that we find in the Bible. The Bible is full of habits. And I believe that habits are the practical way of living Christian life today. You just need to pray to God to help you know how to live correctly before him. So these are some habits in the Bible. I want to share some quotes from Ellen White regarding habits as well. Because of time, well, I'll just quickly read the first one. Habits seldom changed. She says, repeated acts in a given course become habits. These may be modified by severe training in afterlife, but are seldom changed. Here she was actually talking about children. And that's why we are to train up the child in the way it should grow so that it won't leave them, so that it will stay with God. Here, But she does say that they can be modified by severe training in afterlife, but are seldom changed. Once formed, habits become more and more firmly impressed upon the character. Habits may be modified, but seldom changed. Look at this quote. She says, what the child sees and hears is drawing deep lines upon the tender mind. She's speaking of the same thing, but she worded it differently. These deep lines she's talking about here are the synaptic pathways that are formed between the neurons, which no after circumstances in life can entirely efface. Just the point, that's what the scientists said as well. Once they are there, they're there to stay. The intellect is now taking shape and the affections receiving direction and strength. Repeated acts in a given course become habits. These may be modified by severe training in afterlife, but are seldom changed. Now, as we read previously, once habits become more and more firmly impressed upon the character, she says, listen, it goes on. The intellect is continually receiving its mold from opportunities and advantages, ill or well improved. Day by day, we form characters which place the students as well-disciplined soldiers under the banner of Prince Emmanuel, or rebels under the Prince of Darkness. Which shall it be? And my question to you is, which shall it be? What do you choose? Mind, Character, and Personality, Volume 2, page 596, she says, the Word of God abounds in general principles for the formation of correct habits of living, and the testimonies, general and personal, have been calculated to call attention more specifically, especially to these principles. Essentially, the Bible is it's calculated to call our attention, especially to the principles which will help us form correct habits in daily life. This book is not a boring book. This book will help your character, your mind be changed. She goes on to say, and this is one of my favorite quotes in her writings. She says, by persevering effort, habit will finally make it easy. This is what Nathaniel Amons was alluding to. Habit can either be the best of servants or the worst of masters. Make habit your servant by creating good ones that help you in life and moving away from the bad ones that are destroying you. Okay, now let's just look at making some habits that last. Just some key pointers that may help in forming good habits and what we can do to break bad ones. So making habits that last, well, firstly, start with an incredibly small habit, okay? You can solve this problem by picking a new habit that is easy enough so that you don't need a whole heap of motivation to do it. Rather than starting with 50 push-ups per day, for example, start with maybe 5 push-ups per day. And rather than trying to, I don't know, some may be struggling with prayer or something. Rather than trying to set, I'm going to pray for a whole hour and you struggle for that whole time, you could just say, I'm going to pray for 5 minutes to start. At least it's prayer. And then as you keep praying and keep doing it, you'll find that you want to spend more time with God. So you could start with 5 minutes and then build it up to 10 minutes the next day, 15 minutes. But don't try to make it a goal to pray for a specific time. Talk to God as you would with a friend, okay? So you could start, these are just some key pointers. So start with an incredibly small habit. So let's say we want to get to 50 push-ups. Start with 5. Start with 5. 2, then what you want to do is increase your habit in very small ways. So rather than trying to do something amazing and big from the beginning, which is a temptation, a struggle that I have, try and do these big goals, big tasks, and then I fail. What I'm learning to do is just start small. And in starting small, increase the habit in very small ways, okay? So start small and gradually improve as you go along. Along the way, what happens is that your willpower and your motivation, it actually starts to increase, and that will make it easier for you to stick to your good habits that you're beginning to create. So for instance, exercise in the morning. Don't necessarily just start out and say, I'm going to do an hour exercise, cardio. I'm going to do what I have to do. You could just say, I'm going to do a 10-minute exercise. You may watch a video or something during the lockdown that can help you get through the exercise, an exercise video, and just start with 10 minutes, then build it up the week after to 20, then the week after that to 30. As you build up your habit, break habits into chunks. So building up 20 minutes of exercise, you could break it down into segments of 10 minutes at first. So you could say, I'm going to do 10 minutes of exercise in the morning, 10 minutes of exercise in the evening. Or you could say, like we mentioned, doing 50 push-ups a day. You could say, well, instead of doing 50 push-ups in one go, why don't you just break it down so you've got 10 push-ups in one section, 10 push-ups in another time in the day, 10 push-ups at another time of the day, until you do all 50 push-ups a day, and keep doing that till you build up to the 50 that you can do in one go. Realize that when you slip, you can get back on track quickly. So just keep yourself motivated. Realize that even the top performers in life make mistakes and, you know, fail at times, and we just get back up. So we keep getting up. Be patient and stick to a pace that you can sustain. Okay, don't do this for people, do it for you. Okay, so new habits, they should really feel easy, especially in the beginning. If you stay consistent and continue increasing your habit, it will be hard, but it will help you. Okay, and it will be fast enough. You'll be able to get through this the more that you do it in a small, workable way for you. 3 points of habits. You need to understand these 3 points. Every habit you have, good or bad, follows the same 3-step pattern. And the reminder of this is, remember the reminder, the trigger that initiates the behavior, or the cue. So you need to think about what causes me to do this habit. The routine, the behavior itself, okay? And the reward or the benefit that you gain from doing the behavior. So let's just say, for example, there's a bad habit that you're used to doing close towards 9 o'clock in the evening. You may find that your brain starts kicking in, telling you to do this thing from about 7 o'clock or maybe even 6 o'clock. What you need to do is do some self-reflection and think, why is it around this time that I start feeling like I need to do this thing? And then what you need to do is think about, well, how can I replace this bad habit here with a good one? So what you might want to do is, let's just say you was eating at 9 o'clock and you want to stop doing that, but the brain tells you around 7 o'clock, I'm hungry, let's eat this thing at 9 o'clock again. Well, what you want to do is around 6 or 7 o'clock, when that trigger is coming in, start replacing that with a better thing. And then at that time, when that temptation comes to do the bad habit, you'll be starting to form synaptic pathways, habits, behaviors that will strengthen and eventually take the place of the bad habit, and God will strengthen you to do that. Okay, so always consider, what are my reminders? What's the cue? What's causing me to feel like this? What's the routine that I'm doing? How can I change that? And then what's the reward? Do I really want that reward? Is that reward going to help me? Okay, if it's not going to, then you need to change the direction that you're heading in. A recipe for sustained success can be found with these 2 points. 1, decide the type of person that you want to be, and 2, prove it to yourself with small wins. Just some examples of this. You want to lose weight? Well, 1, identity. Become the type of person who moves more every day. Okay, John 3, 3 John chapter 1 verse 2 says, Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. So here's a promise now. I can claim that promise and say, Lord, help me to do this. The small win is, I need to do some practical things today. Go and get a pedometer. You can get a step monitor on your phone or possibly on a watch if you've got one. Walk 50 steps when you get home from work. Tomorrow, walk 100 steps. And if the day after that, do 150 steps. And if you do this 5 days a week, add 50 steps each day, then by the end of the year, you'll be walking over 10,000 steps a day. But it's persevering effort. So just see what you can become, in Christ. Okay, so 1, you want to lose weight? Let's get practical with it and do some things to help. You want to become a better writer. Now, these are just examples. Identity. Become the type of person who writes 1,000 words every day. Who wouldn't love to be able to do that? The small win, Start writing 1 paragraph each day this week. Just start writing. Get yourself a bullet journal. Get something that will help you to do that. Philippians 4:13 says that Jesus Christ, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But I must start. There's some practical things that I need to do. Pray to God today and ask him, what can I do to help me begin this? Okay. You want to become strong? Become the type of person who never misses a workout. The small place to begin is do push-ups every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You want to get to that 50 push-ups in one go? Well, start by doing 10 in the morning and you've got to 50 by the evening. But just start small and work close and work on it every day. You want to be a better friend? Become the type of person who always stays in touch. That's the person you want to be. The Bible says, Proverbs 18:24, a man that has friends must show himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. All right, small win, call 1 friend every Sabbath or on a Sunday. If you repeat the same people every 3 months, you'll stay close with 12 old friends throughout the year. Don't look at the place where you are now. Look at what you can become later on. Okay, and by doing that, by keeping focused, by having that goal, success in any line demanding a definite aim, while you have the aim and you work towards it, God will empower you and you'll see yourself achieving great things that you thought were impossible. Okay. Yeah, and then we've got some steps that can help with breaking bad habits that you've got. 1, choose a substitute for your bad habit. Okay, so choose a substitute for your bad habit. For instance, if, let's just say junk food's a temptation, instead of eating junk food, replace that with fruit, vegetables that will help you. If listening to bad music is a bad habit for you, try and replace it with better music and ask God to help you to get the taste for the better music that will help you, the gospel music. And for me, that was a struggle when I came into Christianity. I was into the R&B, hip hop, bashment music, but God helped me. I asked him to take that away and give me the music that was helpful for me, that would draw me closer to him, and he helped me in that area. So choose a substitute for your bad habits. Reading bad things, try and replace it with reading the Bible. Watching things that aren't helping you. You've got things like Audioverse and 3ABN, Amazing Facts, etc. Watch those things that will help you in your growth. Cut out as many triggers as possible. So that's what I was mentioning earlier. Think about your triggers and try and replace those with better ones. Try and cut the triggers out. When you realize that something's triggering you to do something bad, pray at that moment and ask God for strength to overcome. Join forces with somebody. Find somebody who you can be accountable to, that you can talk to. You don't need to tell them everything, but just say, look, can you help me when I'm going through this struggle? Can I phone you? And can you pray for me? Having that extra person can help. Okay. Surround yourself with people who live the way you want to live. I heard a quote that says, show me your friends and I'll show you who you are. So surround yourself with people who will help you. But do acknowledge that we need to reach the world as well. Okay, so we need to be helping others get to the place that Christ wants them to be in. Visualize yourself as succeeding, and you don't need to be somebody else. You just need to be you. Okay, be the person that God wants you to be. Don't try to measure yourself next to anybody else and do what they do. You do what God requires you to do. You just be you. And use the word but to overcome some negative talk. So an example might be, I'm a failure. You might have heard that all of your life, I'm a failure. But add the word but in. I'm a failure, but everybody fails sometimes. So just add the button to change the negative talk to positive, and that will help you as well. In closing, some books that I think will be helpful for further study: the Bible, Mind, Character, and Personality by Ellen White, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Doidge, Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin, #Struggle by Craig Groeschel, And as I had mentioned in the presentation, some of the key points that I've used in this presentation have actually been from Atomic Habits, James Clear, and his website, jamesclear.com, if I'm correct. If you go there, there are some key points that I've used in this presentation, dealing with some of the practical sides of habits. And I found it to be very helpful, and I thought it would be very helpful for you that are watching today. So do check him out, James Clear, and some of the other authors that I've read, that I've mentioned to you at the end. And God bless you all. I'll bring this presentation to a close now, and I'll stop sharing my screen. Are there any questions? Okay, let me just see the chat section. Okay, I mean, if there are any questions, I'll give you maybe just a few more moments. Hey, Jano.
Well, I have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
Besides the book Struggles by Craig Rochelle, I've got this book called Boundaries.
Boundaries is excellent.
So I've read some of the chapters of it. Do you think it would be helpful for people who have good and bad habits too with this book?
Yeah, definitely. Because boundaries, it's helping you understand. I mean, boundaries is really dealing with people in those books. So, but they lay some excellent principles in helping you identify how to cope. So they give you coping mechanisms in certain areas. So boundaries is a good place, one, for you with your self-reflection, dealing with others, and that will ultimately help you in habit formation as you work towards any goals or aims that you have. So the book definitely is helpful. I know that there's another book that they've done called Safe People that helps as well with working with people and really identifying how to get through that stage of life. But yeah, boundaries, definitely good in helping with habits, I'd add. Okay, so I've got another one. Thanks, Craig. How long does it usually take to form a habit? Yeah, no, I haven't. Okay, so I didn't cover that in the presentation. So you've heard the saying, it takes 21 days to form a good habit. I'd say that you just have to persevere, because I can't set a specific time for forming a habit, though doing something consistently for 21 days or 3 weeks can help. But what if you skip some of the time through those weeks and you're not consistent with it? Forming a good habit, it's perseverance, Ardad. So what happens is your aim becomes a behavior, something that you want to do. And then the more that you do it, it then becomes a habit. So for instance, going to the gym to start with is not a habit. It's more of a routine. And the more that you do it, the brain gets into the process, whatever you're replacing that time with, the brain gets into the process of, let's just say, for example, at the time where I started going to the gym, there was maybe a bad habit that you was doing. The brain starts to lean over to this new habit that you're wanting to form, this new behavior. And the more you do this one, is the lesser that old habit is gaining control over you. So you're creating a habit that's a servant while doing away with this habit that was a master. The more that you do this, is the stronger this behavior becomes. It becomes a habit. Some things become automatic, while some others it's just a process, a routine that you're doing often. And I'd say set times. It could be anywhere between 21 days to maybe just over a month or so. But it's about consistency and persevering effort. That's what I'd say. So I'd add that one in. I hope that answers the question for you, Jody. Do let me know if it does. If it doesn't, okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okie dokie. All right, well, let's close with prayer. Grateful for you all being here this evening. And God bless you all as you continue in your walk. Let's pray. Dear Lord, I thank you for the opportunity to talk with those who are here about habits and how to form them. I pray that you be with us as we go through this daily walk. We're entering into 2021, and who knows what's around the corner. But Lord, we know that you are with us now. You have been with us in the past, and you will be with us in the future. So we've got nothing to fear. Help us in forming good habits, and help us to identify the bad habits that we have in life. This is my prayer in Jesus' precious name. Amen.